back to Let's Play Dawn of the Zeds. I'm your host, Milgaus. From our last episode, I think I only have two potential things to cover. The first, if you will recall, Pickles the dog was foraging in the city and rolled a double 4. If your character is able to roll 2 dice when foraging according to the rules, you're actually able to use both dice on the forage table. So in this case, we should have gotten an extra supply. The second potential mistake we want to look at is when the event card spawned a zombie here in East Iric and just about decimated our civilians. I saw some posts somewhere that said that because it wasn't a zombie moving up the track to encounter them and it was a spawned zombie, that these civilians wouldn't in fact activate. Thematically, I think since they lost half of their army, I think they're pretty well activated. I don't really plan on moving them anyway, but you could argue that these guys are still upside down. We're going to leave them activated. I think that makes more sense. So I think those are the only 2 issues from the last video. Hopefully that's it. If you catch anything on this one, let me know. We'll try to get it corrected. A secret hatch is discovered. Well, that doesn't sound too terrible. RRR movement of 0. We don't have any raiders, rangers, or refugees. Outbreak of 9+. Cleanliness is still next to godliness. We are at an infection level of 1, so we will not have an outbreak. Consume supplies, yes. So we will eat up some of our supplies, going from 18 to 17 to support our troops. Zeds phase. Zeds are going to move twice on the suburbs track, a double activation. And then they're also going to move in the tunnels. First activation, they will move up the board. And the second activation, they're going to enter into poor East Iric. If the civilians weren't activated before, they definitely are now. So we are going to have a zombie attack on these civilians. First thing we need to do is increase our infection level from 1 to 2, since this is a hand-to-hand combat. Next thing we're going to do is compare the strength of our armies. We've got a strength 6 zombie against a lowly strength 1 civilian. Zombies roll a 6. So if you look at the triple table for a roll of a 6, our zombies are going to take 1 damage, our civilians are going to take 3 damage and have to retreat. First, we will apply the 1 damage to our Zeds. Zeds work a little differently than civilians. If you remember, civilians went casualty, flip, casualty, dead. Zombies go casualty marker, they called it dead marker, flip the dead marker, flip the counter, casualty, casualty, remove the counter. So zombies actually have 6 hit points where civilians only have 4. But we only did 1 damage. We apply the counter on top of the Zeds. Here's the first one, and the second one is enough to wipe off our civilians. They don't completely die. They actually go to our hospital. They will sit in our hospital until we have a chance to bring them back out. There's 2 ways we can bring them back out. The first is we can heal them with a character that has a healing ability. And then the second is if we can get some refugees back to town, we can actually rearm our civilian armies with some refugees, force them out of the refugee camp, and get them back into a unit. So since these civilians are destroyed, our villagers are now going to turn into scared refugees. They're all going to hop in their cars and SUVs, and they're going to panic flee to 2nd Street. And they will now begin to try to work their way back to our town center. Apparently they just got the email. Zombies are real. The last thing we need to do is, because a zombie is in a named space, we're here in this village called East Iric, we need to place down a chaos marker. Next up, we're going to move the zombies down on the tunnel tracks. This is our 9 strength zombie unit, the toughest one in the game. Because they are on the secret entrance space, we just need to check that 2 fewer zombies in the suburbs than there are in the tunnel tracks. In other words, if there was 2 zombies in the tunnels and none in the suburbs, this zombie would actually take the secret tunnel and appear out in the university. But because they're both 1, the zombie just shambles forward here into the next space in the tunnels. So that ends our Zeds phase, and now we move on to the action phase. We have an event happening in the action phase. At the beginning of your action phase, roll a die to place the secret entrance marker. And it's either going to appear in the forest track, the mountain track. Then we're going to roll another die to determine which space on that track that it appears in. So we rolled a 5 for which track. That corresponds to the mountain track. We rolled a 6, saying that the secret entrance is going to appear in space 6. That's actually a pretty good roll, because this is the secret entrance that's going to be connected to. And if you get really unlucky and say roll a 1, the zombies are coming out really close to town. We've resolved the event. Now we get 1 whole action. First, we're going to use Sheriff Hunt to command our civilians with the aid of the ever-noble Mayor Hernandez to look for supplies in the town center. And with Mayor Hernandez's help, we get a result of a 4 in a town center. That's actually going to give us a supply, pushing us back to 18 supplies. One quick correction, realize I put the refugees in the wrong spot. They actually moved from this space to this space. With our one action, what I've decided to do is I believe I'm going to build a barricade here in Ingberg. That'll give those civilians an extra little bit of defense. They seem to be at the most amount of risk from an attack next. Of course, a double movement could kill all those plans. We could get a double movement into St. Thomas. We could get a double movement into Beauville. But we got a lot of supplies. Let's go ahead and build some barricades. Barricade in Ingberg. And building a barricade also costs us 2 supply. Our next event card is a supply room is discovered. That's got to be good. RRR movement of 0. Now this time we actually do have refugees, but because it says 0, we're not actually able to move them. If that said 1, we'd be able to move 1 refugee. He would move 1 space closer to town. Outbreak is no. Consume supplies is no. Zeds are going to move on the highway, so that was a good gamble with us building that barricade. We're going to get 3 actions, and the event is going to happen during the action phase. Let's do the Zeds phase first. Since the Zeds are attempting to move into a space that's adjacent to Colonel Kingman here, he is going to attempt his defensive perimeter ability. He rolls a 4, 5, or 6. The zombie movement is canceled, and they are pushed back into the space where they came from. Good job, Colonel Kingman. We salute you, sir. The event, if a friendly unit ends the action phase in the mall district, receive 4 supply points. Very nice. So all we need to do is get one of our units here into the mall, break into the mall, raid the sharper image. We get 4 supply points. We get 3 actions to spend. First thing, Sheriff Hunt, command the civilians. Let's go look for some supplies. Mayor Hernandez is also no help. We get a 2, we add 1 to it to get a 3. We find nothing. I think for my first action, I'm going to move these refugees into Beauville. If the zombies here would actually move into the refugee camp, they're going to be eaten alive. We want to get those refugees, try to get them back to the town center because they're pretty valuable. We can use them to rearm our troops with. Moving the refugees into Beauville. Second action, I think I'm going to forage with Pickles, see if we can find anything, and then move him into the mall district to somehow break into a mall, strap a bunch of stuff onto his back, and bring it back to us at the town center. It's a very gifted dog. But first, foraging. Pickles 2s are turned into 3s. Come on, Pickles. Pickles finds nothing. Last action, moving Pickles into the mall district. We're at the end of the action phase. Since he is in the mall district, we are going to receive 4 more supply points. And I believe we are maxed out at 19 supplies. Event card. Suburbs Night Assault. RR movement of 0. Still not able to move our refugees. Outbreak at a 10+. Our distribution of handy wipes throughout the town is still keeping our infection at a nice and cleanly 2. We do not need to consume supplies, and the event is going to happen in the Zeds phase. In suburb spaces this turn, A, Zeds units' hand-to-hand combat attacks raise the infection level by 2 instead of 1, and B, there are no combat terrain shifts for friendly defending units. And they're going to get a double activation. Ugh. Let's get this over with. First activation for our Zeds is they're going to move into the university. Because they've entered a space with a named space on it, they've entered into the Farmland University, they're going to spread chaos. Chaos goes to every space that has a name on it. Second activation, they are going to move into Beauville. First thing that does is activate our civilians. They now believe the hype. And we compare our zombie strength to our civilian strength. We have a strength of 6 versus a strength of 3, which means we would be rolling on the double table. Now, normally we would get a shift to the left because we're on a named space. We're in a village. But because of our event, we actually don't get any favorable terrain shifts. So we're going to just be straight rolling on the double table. And we also need to increase the infection by 2 this time for hand-to-hand combat because of this night assault that's happening. So we're going to be rolling on the greater than table. A roll of 10 on the double table means that our zombies take no damage and our civilians take 3 damage and have to retreat. So our civilians are going to take 3 damage, casualty counter, flip, casualty counter, and they have to retreat. Our villagers are going to turn into refugees and run away. Hey, what about us, guys? These guys are dead. They get eaten by the zombies. And Beauville is now in chaos. All right, suburbs. Not looking so great. Now we have a generous 3 actions to try to get things back under control. Since we're already at max supplies, having Sheriff Hunt command our civilians to look for supplies probably isn't going to do too much for us. So we need to try to see if we can do something about these zombies down here. For my first action, I'm going to move Sheriff Hunt from the town center 2 spaces to the bridge. My second action, he's going to use his long-range gunfire ability. We're going to take some shots at this group of zombies here, see if we can do some damage. So since this is our first time doing gunfire attacks, we look at Sheriff Hunt's strength. He is a strength 5. That means he's going to roll 5 on the gunfire attack table. He can shoot 2 spaces away because of his long-range ability. A 7 on the gunfire table with a strength of 5 is going to do 2 damage to these zombies. Flipping our counter once. Flipping the zombie over for the 2nd damage. And now this zombie you see is reduced to a strength of 4. We reduce our ammo from 7 to 6. 1 action left. It'd be nice to get Pickles back to town center, but we've still got some shooting to do. Sheriff Hunt's going to take another shot. Decrease our ammo from 6 to 5. You're killing me, Sheriff. Looking at a 3 on the 5 strength table, we do a 1 damage. Better than nothing, I guess. So we've successfully completed the suburbs night assault, definitely without heavy losses. We mourn our poor refugees that made the long drive from East Irick, only to be devoured in Beauville. Pour one out for the East Irick villagers.